In this chapter, we'll discuss working with objects. First, we're going to talk about the difference between objects and frames. Then we'll talk about editing and positioning frames, arranging and aligning frames, and finally we'll talk about using guides to help arrange frames on the page. If I look at my InDesign tips and tricks document here, I'll give you a sense of exactly what an object is. Object is a general term used by InDesign for any editable element on the page. So that includes my text, my images, my graphic elements such as these circles or this red rectangle at the side. Everything that appears on the page, any drawn lines or drawn images, are referred to as objects. That means that something I can move around as part of my layout and act upon in the page itself. Frames are the way that InDesign manages objects. So to give you an example of a frame, I'll show you this image up at the top. You see this highlighted blue line. This is the frame around my object. If I click on the image beneath, you can see that the edge of the image actually extends outside the frame itself, and the frame acts as sort of a window that allows me to see through only the part that's contained inside the frame itself. So if I grab and drag, you can see that I can move the image around the frame, but only the part that's layered behind the frame itself will be visible through the frame. I also have frames around my text, and even this circle has a frame around it that contains it. There are two sets of tools that are used primarily for creating frames. The rectangle frame tool and its hidden tools, the ellipse frame tool and the polygon frame tool, and the rectangle tool and its hidden tools, the ellipse tool and the polygon tool. For all intents and purposes, these tools are pretty similar. The rectangle frame tool allows you to draw rectangles, the ellipse frame tool and ellipse tool allow you to draw ellipses, and the polygon frame tool and the polygon tool allow you to draw different sorts of polygons. There are a couple of default differences that are set to the rectangle tool versus the rectangle frame tool. Up at the top, I've drawn a rectangle with the rectangle frame tool, and you'll notice immediately that there's a big blue X through it. That's a non-printing graphic element that represents the fact that an image could be contained within this tool, within this frame. And so if you're setting up a document but you don't have the images all set yet, you can use this as a placeholder for an image before you put the image in place. You can set the frame to the size that you want and the shape that you want, and that X will sort of indicate to you that you're still waiting for an image. The rectangle tool doesn't have that graphic X through it, and it also comes with a preset stroke. This can be changed, but that's the way the default is set up. There are two elements to any frame, what's called the fill, which is the area inside, and the stroke, which refers to this outside path that defines the frame. So looking at my two frames here, especially this will be more visible if I go up to the view options and turn off the frame edges, you can see that when I have a stroke around my object or my frame, that will show up even when I have the frame edges turned off, whereas a frame with no fill and no stroke won't show up. But if I go over it with a selection tool, you can see the edges represented here. I'll go back up and turn my frame edges on so it's a little bit easier for you to see. There are three types of content that can be assigned to any frame, whether it's a graphic frame, whether it's a rectangle frame tool created frame, which is automatically preset to a graphic content, or a rectangle frame, which is automatically preset to an unassigned content. The three types of content are text content, graphic content, and unassigned content. I'll show you quickly if you'd like to do something with automatic text content assigned to it. You can click on the type tool itself, draw a box, and that's set up for automatic text content. You can see a little cursor up in the top there, and I can begin typing immediately. If I want to change the content of a frame, I can do that through the Object menu. So what I do is I use the Selection tool, this is this black arrow up at the top, to select my frame. I go up to Object and down to Content, and then I can select any of these three choices, graphic, text, or unassigned. So even though they come with a preset content, I can change that at any time. The one thing I will note is if there's already content contained in the box, such as text or an image, you'll have to remove or delete the content first before you change the content setting on the frame.